All right, so one of the questions that I've been having by a lot of clinicians is focused on what type of questions to ask when you're working with a U visa case. Now, this is a very good question because with a U visa case, the questions can be focused on, of course, that crime that has taken place, but then you also want to look at questions that have to do with that client's history, their country of origin, as well as the potential that they do have to face that deportation if that were to take place. And then you can also look at dynamics within culture itself, language, barriers. So let's really dive into a deeper conversation so that when you're working with your client and you're writing this immigration evaluation, you're able to ask the right questions that can lead to, if you will, a spider web of questions. Now, when you have a U visa case, one of the first things that I encourage people to do is to reach out to the attorney, establish that relationship, receive that supplemental B form, packet. I'm sorry. So with that packet, you're going to have the patient's personal statement. You're also going to have that client's police report. Now, this is your collateral information where you're able to identify and read in the collateral information in that police report with the date of the incident, what took place, how that person was affected. And then in that personal statement, that client provided for the attorney, you're able to just cross-reference it just to make sure things that the validity is consistent when you're working with the client. I do encourage to look at questions as far as the story. Now the story is where you're asking the client what took place. Let them go into detail as far as their own perspective, their own ideas, their own thoughts of just overall a basic story of what it was like for them to go through that incident. And then you're going to write all of this information down, and again make sure that it's consistent with the other information, because when this packet goes to court, goes to IC, you're going to want to make sure that everything remains consistent. It's consistent to give that validity. And again, connect with your attorney so you're all on the same page. Now, with some of the questions that I look at, I do focus on questions connected to the crime itself, such as how has it impacted your sleep? How has it impacted your appetite? How has it impacted your mood? How has it impacted your anxiety-driven thoughts? Have you had any sadness, any sad-related thoughts? So you're digging into these areas. Now, in addition to the person itself, right, I'm also looking at who's connected to this person. So as an example, I like to use case studies so that we're all following along. Let's say that this is an individual who experienced an incident where they went into a bank and they're held up there and they have this really traumatic experience, right? They vividly remember having a gun pressed against them. They vividly remember the incident to detail that even later when you're working with them, they're having bad dreams, they're having nightmares, if you will. Their sleep has changed from an 8-hour healthy cycle to 4 or 5 hours. Now, an area you could look at that's connected to that individual is, has this traumatic incident impacted other individuals, or has it connected to a secondary trauma? Now, secondary meaning that maybe in the past this individual, while they were living in a different state, a different country, there was another trauma that took place that was maybe not reported, but the person still is suffering to an extent, a psychological extent, whether it's emotional, physical, off of that trauma. So then you're connecting those two, and then in your evaluation, you're writing about the effects of that, or the potential effects, and of course you're connecting it to a recommendation. Now, we also look at the connection of the trauma to the family system. Now, let's say that this individual was a father and he has a child, and then after the incident, he shares with you that he doesn't like to go out late anymore, and he doesn't like to go out late anymore because the incident itself, that trauma that took place at night. So, if you will, that's a PTSD symptom connected to avoidance of that stimulus, of avoidance of going out in the dark because it brings back those distressful flashbacks. Now, that's connected to the person that you're working with sharing with you that they don't take their child out anymore. So now there's that disengagement in a previously enjoyable activity. But it's not just impacting the person itself, it's impacting that child. And that could be another recommendation where you look at family outpatient therapy to support that family system where that trauma did impact that person, but it's also interconnected to other individuals in their life. So you're able to see, I apologize if I kind of talked a little bit quick there, I'm sorry, but you're able to see how that traumatic incident can connect to different areas. And this is where you and I as a clinician were able to begin one question and then connect it to another and connect it to another and connect it to another question. So hopefully this video was helpful. We're able to gain a little bit more insight, a little bit more awareness as far as the type of questions you can ask for a U visa. All right, again, if this is helpful, I do have the immigration training where in the training we go over the common cases to the degree that you become educated so that when you're working with your client, whether they're coming in with a U visa a vowel case, a T visa, whatever it may be, you have that legal education. Now, you're also in the training going to have a lot of marketing support, so you're able to build your private practice in the right way and then increase your revenue through this type of work. In addition, you're going to be able to learn how to write the evaluation all the way from receiving a template to receiving a guidance on the template, where I'm going to go into each of the section and then how you can shift that depending on the case that you're working with. In addition, as mentioned, we go over the common cases, we go over how to write the evaluation. We also go into detail as far as your relationship with the client, your relationship with the attorney. So overall, in the immigration training is to help you write an effective evaluation and to know how to do your job. All right? Take care.